Live, unrivaled coverage. The European Cup Final. Marseille v Red Star Belgrade. 7 o'clock next Wednesday on BBC1.
Did you steal the painting?
No. Yes. Yes, but no.
Well, which is it?
Both.
Robert Redford, Deborah Winger and Daryl Hannah star in a comic thriller from the director of Ghostbusters.
Anything you say can be held against you. You have the right to an attorney.
It looks like she's already had her attorney.
If you repeat that allegation anywhere, I'll see to it you never practice law in any court in this country.
An open and shut case, not for legal eagles, also next Wednesday, 9:40, BBC1.
I don't ever want to do this again.
Now, Anne Robinson adds her comments to more of your points of view.
Good evening, and Jean Middleton has something very sad to tell you.
In Neighbours tonight, a beautiful caramel-coloured dog was knocked down by a motor car. He lay on his side very still, as if dead or paralysed, and uttered faint little high-pitched whimpers. It was terrifying.
Well, having taken a second look at Bouncer's performance, I'm not sure terrifying is quite the right description.
He's going to be all right. He's going to be all right.
Is he okay?
His leg. Oh, no.
How can you tell?
We've got to get into the bed.
No,
Will you just go away?
I don't think you should move him. Come on. And let me take you to the vet.
Open the door for me, Lockie.
That was Bouncer, mortally wounded and in danger of running off as if perfectly fit. Just one of the shocking events in Ramsay Street last week. Another was a card game with an interesting scoring system.
OK, guys, let's get this over with.
Whose idea was it to play poker? Yeah, and who said he was such a big card shark? How are you going to get me out of this one?
And a mother from Whittam in Essex writes.
Neighbours used to be a real family show, but now with all these plunging necklines and strip poker, it has crossed the line. Come on, BBC. Neighbours is watched by the children of the nation.
Several complaints also about an ugly little incident which was shown on Saturday and which quite frankly made Bouncer's little bump seem very mild indeed. Gay Glosov rang to say.
I've just switched over to watch a revolting film called Cat's Eye, and I was absolutely disgusted to see the scene involving cats in a pen being given electric shocks to its feet. I think the BBC is absolutely irresponsible in putting this sort of crap on the television, to be quite honest with you, and I wish to God you'd stop it.
Placing programme schedulers in a pen and giving them electric shock treatment might, on the other hand, be just what's needed for them to see sense over one particular matter. Alas, we'd have to catch them first. So instead, your turn, Mrs. Wildman, on behalf of at least 2 million viewers, including, as we know, anyone in Essex who is home in the afternoon, because at 2:15 this very afternoon...
They did it again.
And once again, what exactly did they do, Mrs. Wildman?
They replaced Knots Landing with boring old drivel.
And tell us, Mrs. Wildman, why does this habit of theirs affect you so badly?
Well, Anne, I'm a licence-paying working woman. I don't ask much in life, but every Wednesday at 2:15, I'm content in the knowledge that my faithful old video has switched itself on to record my favourite programme.
But, and quite honestly, I find this a lot sadder than Bouncer's accident.
When I get home after cooking everyone's dinner, doing the washing up, and settle down to watch my highlight of the week, I either see a load of balls rolling round a table, a load of men running around a football field kissing each other, or a racing venue.
It was the racing venue today. Goodwood not at all glorious, as Mrs. W, having by now presumably cooked the dinner and washed up, will have found out. Anyway, please, pleads Mrs. W.
Tell them upstairs to either leave Knots Landing in its allocated slot or give it an alternative slot that none of these male sporting-loving programme arrangers can get their biased hands on.
Well, Knots Landing is on next week, Mrs. W. Points of view isn't football. Now, down memory lane.
What about the Beeb showing some of the Citizen Smith series again?
Ask Anne Clowes in Newton Stewart. Alas, no plans to do so, but it is available on video. And here from 1977, a little bit of Robert Lindsay, who after this became the toast of broad. Both written by John Sullivan, the genius who gave us Only Fools and Horses. Inside Story last Wednesday reported on victims of rape and the police treatment of them, and it spoke to men serving time for rape. 2 women bravely faced the camera to tell of their ordeal. This was one of them.
I went to bed and I tried to sleep and couldn't, because every time I shut my eyes, he was there. You know, if I was on my back, he was on top of me. I could smell his breath. I could feel him. It was just awful. And there was no position I could get comfortable in. And I just ended up, after trying to sleep for a while, I just ended up screaming and screaming and screaming into my pillow.
A third victim featured didn't face the camera but was seen, her face disguised, being interviewed by the police. Inside Story reported also that the Metropolitan Police have radically altered and improved their treatment of rape victims in the past few years. Caroline Way thought, however,
the programme was a humiliating experience to watch as a woman. It was also very intrusive. We went into the police doctor's consulting room with the girl, and we actually heard commentary of what was going on while she was being examined, all her bits. The men were not made vulnerable in this way.
Another viewer felt the disguise of this victim was quite insufficient.
Her face was blotted out slightly, but anybody that knew the woman or had seen her around is going to know just who she is. But then, when it comes to actual convicted rapists, we don't see any faces. They're not identifiable, and I'd really like to know why.
Well, the woman gave her full consent to the filming. Men convicted of rape and serving time, however, cannot by law be photographed. Several hawk-eyed viewers noticed something else which was extremely interesting. As I mentioned, Inside Story reported that the Metropolitan Police has radically altered and improved their treatment of rape victims, which presumably means taking a far more sensitive, sympathetic and understanding attitude, except...
In the police officer's office at the beginning of the programme, I was very disappointed to see a calendar with a naked female with legs wide open.
Not ideal material to be on show in a police station. Heather Fraser of Wimbledon continues.
I felt it was very demeaning to females. I was shocked that this was on the wall and that an officer of such seniority would have such a calendar, or that female police officers at the station would allow it to stay there.
Similarly, Miss Kay Summers of Bedford said she found herself admiring the gentle interviewing techniques from the officers covering the case, only to be
totally appalled to see the scene with the police officer using the phone with the decoration of a soft porn calendar in the background. There's a time and place for everything. That was not it.
Miss Summers then admonishes the programme makers.
Perhaps it would be a good job if you retrained your continuity staff.
Which I fear is a case of shooting the messenger rather than them with the message. The calendar was there when filming took place, although interestingly the police did later ask for it to be removed from the film. It suggests there's still much room for improvement in the attitude of some male police officers, and it would surely have been quite wrong for the programme makers to alter the facts. And a last word on the subject from Mrs. M of South Bermondsey.
I was raped twice in my childhood, and after the first time in 1980, I vowed I would never go to court again. I was most impressed by Inside Story. It showed the standard of treatment, including counselling of a victim, has much improved. I only wish these services had been available 10 years ago.
Finally to that which probably had half the country stuck inside last Saturday afternoon, the Cup Final. Derek Rogers, would you like to set the scene?
First, there were 18 minutes or so of Paul Gascoigne clowning, demonstrating an even lower level of professional behaviour than we've come to expect.
Then a spot of football before, Derek. Will you continue?
The farcical climax, the collapse of Mr. Gascoigne from injuries, with a full ration of views of his tearful suffering.
And, of course, over to Mike Swan.
30 seconds or more, shot of an ambulance backing into the stadium and reporter explaining which hospital friend Gazza was being taken to.
And for the edited highlights, back to you, Derek.
Well, by the time we reached the after-match commentaries and analyses, all that we were privileged to see was the transfer of Mr. Gascoigne from one stretcher to another, and a refresher shot of his tears.
Mr. Williamson in Liverpool, will you sum up?
Every year we hear Desmond telling us that a lot of viewers have said how they enjoy the band. And what happens?
What happens, Mr. W?
Instead, we get the same gang of self-opinionated soccer know-alls boring us to tears.
Or crying into their stretchers. I'll leave you with a little bit more of the Royal Marines. Knots landing back next Wednesday. Points of view not back until the Wednesday after. European Cup final instead. Enjoy. Good night.